Profitability is a very important measure for any farm or ranch, or any agribusiness for that matter. Because let's face it, farming and ranching, as well as being a lifestyle, is also a business. So let's look at first what is profitability and how do you measure that, and then some of the trends involved with profitability for the whole food and fiber industry or the whole farming sector. So, first and foremost, profitability could also be described as being the net farm income. And the way you calculate net farm income is you take the gross farm income minus the production expenses. So, your gross farm income, what is that? Why don't you just say receipts from all livestock and crops sold? Well, that's an aspect of this gross farm income. But in reality, the way you calculate the gross farm income is you take the cash receipts from farm marketings, plus any government payments you might have received, plus other income from farm sources. So let's break down those three different aspects real quick. So first and foremost is cash receipts from farm marketing. That is usually the main reason that you're in the farming or ranching business. That's to sell either crops or livestock. That's where the main amount of your income generally comes from. You're in the business as a farmer or rancher to sell either crops or livestock, and that's your cash receipts from farm marketing. Government payments. Farmers and ranchers in certain sectors may receive government payments in the form of subsidies, or it's a little extra bonus coming from the government to help these farmers and ranchers remain profitable or remain at a certain level of profit. So government payments also adds to this gross farm income. And then this last aspect of other income from farm sources, this might constitute something such as custom harvesting, where you are using farm equipment in order to earn an income other than what is directly related to the sale of something like crops and livestock. So, what has been going on with the trends in both expenses and payments? Well, if we focus on production expenses first, this latter part of the equation of this net farm income, we see that production expenses, they've been rising persistently since 1973. Well, what is causing those production expenses to be rising like that, especially since 1973? Well, there's two main key aspects. The first key aspect is the rising price of petroleum. You got to remember that petroleum is a major expense or a major aspect of agriculture. All the way down to the diesel that you put in your tractor to run your tractor, that's a petroleum expense. If you're using gasoline in farm vehicles, that's a petroleum expense. But also there is petroleum-based byproducts such as fertilizer. Fertilizer prices have been rising, and that can also be contributed back to the rising petroleum cost. So as farmers use more fertilizer and the petroleum cost increase, yeah, we're going to see rising production expenses because of that. Another major aspect, another major production expense, is tied to these rising interest rates. Well, a lot of farmers and ranchers, they might have loans on their land or loans on equipment or anything like that where they are purchasing those products under a loan. Well, as the interest rates rise, it raises their production expenses. So, yes, production expenses have been rising, especially since 1973, and you can contribute a lot of that back to rising petroleum and rising interest rate costs. And in turn, whenever those rise, it often rises prices elsewhere. Well, what about in terms of the payments? What's going on with trends in this gross farm income and payments? Well, one thing is we're seeing that cash receipts. In 1960, the cash receipts from these farm marketings was at $34 billion, a very significant amount back in the 1960s. And this is nominal values. So these are the prices that they would have received back in the 1960s. Nowadays, that same nominal value has increased to $377 billion in 2015. So since 1960 to 2015, the nominal value of ag products has increased by 10 times. It's over 10 times more than what it was back in the 1960s. And then since the 1960s, that average cash receipts has been $165.3 billion. So, what does that mean? It means that as a whole, cash receipts are increasing. What about government payments? Because government payments can often play a major role in that. And we see that government payments range anywhere from $500 million in 1974 to $24.4 billion in 2005. So from 1960 to 2015, government payments have ranged anywhere from $500 million a year to all the way to $24.4 billion a year at its peak. So that averages out to $8.3 billion since 1960. On average, government pays out $8.3 billion in government payments per year. Now, if you compare $8.3 billion to $377 billion, it appears to be a small amount. But $8.3 billion is a very significant amount that's being paid out in government payments. So that's leading up into that gross farm income. And overall, we're seeing this gross farm income trending upwards. Now, and we're also seeing that these production expenses are also trending upwards. So production expenses are going up, as well as this farm income, usually it's going up, or it's trending upwards at least. So how does that, if both of them are increasing, how does that affect the net farm income? Well, as a result, net farm income, at least the nominal net farm income, has generally been on the rise since 2010. It fluctuates, but since 2010, it's generally been on the rise with some upswings and some downturns. But if we take this nominal net farm income and adjust it for inflation, and we bring out the real net farm income, we see actually that this nominal or this real net farm income actually peaked in 1973. After 1973, it's been on a decline until 2002, but since 2002, it's recovered slightly, or it's recovered since then, especially in 2010, it began to recover. So if you remember, the real net farm income is the nominal farm income adjusted for inflation. And that can be calculated by taking that nominal net farm income divided by the consumer price index. So I want to make a point here, and we talk about the real net farm income. We say it peaked at 1973. It was at its highest point in 1973. Well, is there another time that something significant happened in 1973? Well, if we bring it back here to these production expenses began to rise in 1973. So that's also helping out with this peak. The reason it was the highest in 1973 is partially because expenses have been rising since that time.